So both crews are in the blocks. We're seeing them hand back any excessive gear they wore to the start line to keep warm. They've handed bags back to the stake boats. Now we're going to watch the coxswains. They'll start the starting preparation. Their hands will be up if they are not ready. Their goal here is to make sure the crew is pointed in exactly the right position. Steering here is extremely important. You know, you don't want to do any more meters than you have to. And so that is one of the key jobs of the coxswains here as we get ready to start this 3V race.
So that's the local things that the coxswain's trying to do. There was a huge global effort from both these schools to come all the way back from the West Coast. They just concluded racing at the IRA on Sunday, and there was a major effort to haul the shells across the country and get them here to this beautiful site. We have a following tailwind, so the times could be pretty quick, although the tide is outgoing still, nearly slack for the varsity race at 3 o'clock. But it should be a pretty slick race, I think. Both these crews having been in the grand final of the IRA, again, just a week ago, less than, actually 6 days. And do you ever wonder if everybody's fully recovered from all the jet lag and the intensity of that IRA competition?
And it's not just physically, but mentally as well. You ramp up for the national championships, and then you have to be here.
Yeah.
Both hands are down.
Yep, our referee is Ed McKenna.
Harvard. Yeah.
He's taking an awfully long time, really looking at Emerson, the Yale coxswain. She's not quite ready with her point.
Okay. Attention. Go.
Got to start.
You're looking for a few crisp strokes here to get the boat up to speed. Both crews got off cleanly, which is job number one. This is somewhat of a tense time. You've been waiting around. Getting the blades in the water cleanly is something that's really important.
It's been a good start by Yale.
Yeah, both crews are off. Yale might be up by half a deck at most here, but Yale's getting in strong rhythm along with Harvard here.
Very long strokes from Yale.
Yeah.
Very different than some of the IRA intensity we saw recently. I'd say Yale has about a seat here.
Yeah, both crews are rating high. Harvard's at a 45 right now. Looking very strong though.
There's only one look across there. Too early to do that.
Yeah. I think probably Harvard has pulled out one seat, but it is neck and neck based on the angle we're at here.
I think this is a good start by Yale.
It is.
Yeah. They showed a lot of guts in qualifying for the grand final at the IRA. It's somewhat of a very happy surprise with a great performance. These guys have worked hard all year and haven't quite had the results to show for it, and making the grand final was quite an achievement. They're trying to turn that into the ultimate achievement for a Yale oarsman, which is to defeat Harvard in New London.
So Harvard settled down to a 38, looking very strong, sort of classic Harvard rowing, very direct, blades to the water, not a lot of excess movement at the catch. That's what you like to see here. It shows that they're calm, they're collected. The thing that can kill you in this race is starting to worry about the stuff outside of your boat. If you start thinking about what the man sitting across from you is doing, that is the first dint in your armor, and you don't want to do that. And I can see in the Harvard boat, all heads are straight ahead, the rowing is direct, the stroke has a wonderful catch placement and direct movement, and the crew is following him. And I think they probably pulled out to around a 3 or a 4 stroke seat lead in this first half mile.
Yeah, from about 1 minute 45 to now 2:10, Harvard's made a good lead. Emerson has made a great steering job through a very narrow first half mile mark. And right now it's time for Yale to stop the Harvard move. They've got to do that now.
You know, and the Harvard, on the flip side, the Harvard boat, especially that stern pair of brothers, they'll know when you get this type of margin, the longer Yale sits at this margin, the more comfortable Yale gets with that and doesn't worry about falling back more. You don't want to sit on a lead of around the length or what it is right now. You now want to really put the foot down and make open water. So, you know, open water is key because the other boat can't feel where you are. Obviously, the rowers are looking backwards, and if you're beside them, they can feel you even if you're not looking at them. But if there's open water between the boats, that's when that feel starts to go away, and that's a problem for the trailing crew.
Seems here, Kip, that the Harvard coxswain is moving closer to the west side of the course, and I think Emerson is going with the Harvard coxswain, but the gap between the two crews have opened up a little bit.
Yeah.
You look upstream to the mile mark. You can see how close together the buoys are on the east side. That's going to be quite a challenge for Emerson to negotiate successfully.
Yeah, and if I'm the Harvard cox, that's probably smart. This is a slight cross-tail breeze, so getting the protection of the land will give you a little bit flatter water. I would say Yale's holding on here, though. Harvard has not moved out at the same clip they were perhaps 2 minutes ago. You know, that happens. Crews give a little extra burst of effort at pre-planned moments or when the cox tells them to. And that was always happening between the two crews. So we're approaching the halfway mark. Harvard is still rating at a 36 or so, which tells you that they're kind of racing this like a 2K, maybe a little lower than they would in a race. But they know that, you know, 2K to 2 miles, it's about the same effort they have to put in each stroke. It's not like you're doing less work each stroke.
Well, the difference between 6-boat racing and 2-boat racing is quite dramatic. You can't really look at your opponents in a 6-boat race. You have to do your very best job of going from A to B without regard for who's moving in what lane. But here, what the Harvard task is right now is just to sit on this Yale crew, compete the stroke, and keep moving towards the finish line.
Yeah, I think the Harvard crew has really showed its class that we saw at the IRAs when they were almost victorious there. They're just rowing just as calmly as they were 3 minutes ago. They don't look stressed at all. I always say good rowing looks as simple as possible. And as an aficionado who is over the hill and doesn't do it anymore, there's always something really beautiful to me about good rowing. And I think Harvard is showing us that right now.
You know, Yale got off to a really good start.
They did.
And clearly their Harvard was a little more efficient there, getting a lot more boat speed out of their effort versus the Yale effort.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't talk about the racing last night for the James P. Snyder Cup, but in that race, Harvard had a lead, and the Harvard coxswain hit this number 13 green can yesterday with her starboard oars, which might have led Yale back into the race, but both coxswains now have negotiated successfully.
Yeah, when you hit a stationary object like that with these very strong but carbon fiber blades in boats, damage can happen. Luckily for Harvard, it really didn't do much to their race. They still won comfortably and had a great start for the weekend. That combi race last night, you know, when I was here, we always wanted that race because it set the tone for the weekend. So we're approaching the 1.5 mile mark, and only at 6 minutes. This is a fast race.
Yeah. The wind if it was any greater, and it's predicted to be a little bit more for the varsity race, could present a little bit of a chop and an additional challenge for the oarsmen.
Yeah. We are here coming into the most protected part of the course here. You can see that they are as close to the shoreline as they'll get. Harvard is just going through the 1.5 mile marker now. They will go through in approximately 6 minutes and 22 seconds. They probably have around 3 lengths of open on Yale right now. We'll get Yale's time as they go through as well.
It's about 10 seconds right there.
Yeah, it's with around
13.
6:36 or so unofficially through the 1.5 mile mark. Harvard, they haven't started sprinting yet. They will sprint. You have to remember that some of these young men are graduating university. This is their last race for a crew they rode with for 4 years. Made some great friends, and so this is their last race. They are not going to ease it in. They are going to get to the rock. They are going to sprint, put the last little bit of effort in for their college rowing careers here.
We'll talk about this as they get by, but there's the famous rock on the west shore that this year is painted crimson, again for that win last night in the James P. Snyder Cup. Whoever wins that race gets to paint the rock in their school colors. And right now it's a crimson rock with a big white block H on the rock.
And as a Harvard grad, it's good to see there is a long stretch there. There was way too blue for way too many years, so we're happy to see it back its appropriate color, certainly. So Harvard's still stroking at around 35, 36 strokes a minute. They are not letting their foot off the gas. Going very long, very strong. There hasn't been much change at all in their technique the whole time, which is really the mark of a good crew, a well-rowed race, a well-coached crew. And I think here they're showing their class that we've seen throughout the year.
Well, I think they want to set the tone for the upper two boats, the 2V and the 1V. They're doing a nice job of that.
Yeah.
Yale trying to hang in. They're certainly rowing hard still, but unable to find that right pace here from minute 30 to about 2:30.
So as Harvard grows by the rock, for some of them, the final time of their careers, it'll be a bit of a bittersweet moment, but when they cross that finish line, there'll be nothing but celebration. They've put in hundreds, if not thousands of hours of work into this effort, and it has played out exactly as they would have hoped. As they take their final strokes here, they've lifted the rate slightly.
I'm looking for the yellow finish line flag.
Yeah.
There we go. There's one. Got about 8:56.6 unofficial.
Yeah. Yale's down to its last 8 or so strokes.
Yeah. And 9:19. So about a 23-second unofficial margin.
So while we await the official times, which we'll announce when they come through to us, just for those of you who are not regular watchers of the sport, what will happen now is one of the oldest traditions in college rowing is the boats will come together and the losers will give their shirts to the victors. That's one of the very unique traditions of our sport here.
Although in this case, nobody, because of the heat of the day, nobody's actually wearing a T-shirt.
Yes, smart move.
It's all the singlets.
Another sort of point of culture about our sport is that you have to remember they're competitors, but they do the same thing, and they know exactly how hard it is to do this when you're trying to balance out academics and, for some of them, a social life, perhaps, not all of them.
Perhaps.
And they have deep respect for the people that they race against on both sides.
Yale, 9:19.7.
All right, if you didn't hear that on the announcing, so the official times from this race are Harvard, 8 minutes and 56 seconds, 0.8. Yale was 9 minutes and 19 seconds, 0.7. You know, in our break between races, I'm going to go back and look and see. That will be one of the fastest 2-milers ever rowed on this course, I'm fairly sure. So I want to go back and see what how it compares. You know, that's indicative of what's going to happen today. These are going to be fast races.
I absolutely believe it.
Yeah.
The conditions are right.
Yeah.
The only thing would be the excessive heat that we have here. That might knock a guy out. We're going to talk about that a little bit later.
And as I was saying about the respect, you can hear them chattering. I can hear them chattering from here. You know, these guys have raced each other probably in high school, in college, and this is, you know, a special moment for all 18 of them.
A lot of guys have raced together, as we'll see in the upper boats, for the Great Britain U23 team, for example. So there's a lot of respect back and forth, a lot of chatter. And we do have the official results. So it was Harvard for at least the second year in a row, winning the James P. Snyder Cup here over the 2-mile distance upstream from Mammoth Oak Hill to the finish line. And we're going to come back to you for the 3-mile race as the crews compete for the F. Valentine Chapel Trophy over the 3-mile distance. So we'll come back to you just before 2 p.m. here from the River Thames in New London, Connecticut. We'll see you then.
Nice weather for some boats to come out. Yeah, yeah. I'm at 97 minutes on battery, Jamie. I'll probably shut down here if you're cool with that. JB, am I good to shut down? Copy. I'll plan to be back on I'll plan to be back on like 10 minutes before the race, like 150.
Yeah,
Okay,
a little bit
perfect.
longer would be nice.
1 and go.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Thames River here in New London, Connecticut. Thanks to the good services of Captain Jeff Mychak, we've gone from the finish line up 3 miles towards the entrance of the Connecticut River. And we're here with Kip McDaniel, and we're here to talk about the JV race as these two crews of Harvard and Yale strive for the F. Valentine Chapel Trophy. Little correction from our previous race, that was not a course record. Harvard, though victorious in that race, fell about 10 seconds short of the record. The record here in this 3-miler was set in 2022 by Yale. 13:25 is the time to beat. That was a blistering pace, and nobody's gotten within 13 seconds of that. So let's go over the lineups for the Yale JV. Give me just a moment.
Well, I'll just jump in and do the Harvard JV crew while we get started here. It is truly an international crew from Italy to England to Greece to the woods of Maine. Starting with our Cox at 5'2", a senior, Ira Hennen from Woolwich, Maine, a graduate of Morse High School. Our stroke is Tyler Horler, who previously has been in the varsity. He's a senior graduating this year, 6'5", 210 from Sarasota, Florida, graduate of Pineview School. At 7 is Owen Finnerty, a junior, 6'6", 200 pounds from Ardmore, Pennsylvania, from the Great Rowing School of St. Joe's Prep. And at 6, a name that has given me pause every time I've done this, is Apostolos Likamitros, who's a senior, 6'6", and claims to be 250 pounds in the program, although I am doubtful of that stat. He is from Greece and Etolia College. At 5, also a former V rower, Cameron Bakey, who's a senior, the tallest man in the boat at 6'8", 205 pounds from Reading, England. At 4, Sam Golladay, who's a junior, 6'4", 205 from Andover, Mass, from the Venerable Phillips Academy. At 3, a freshman, 6'4", Robert Rawlinson, who's 210 pounds from Moortoo in March, England, a graduate of Radley College. At 2, Ellum Hughes, who's another freshman, 6'5", 203 pounds from Halifax, England, a graduate of St. Edward's. And at bow, another Italian from Bellagio this time, Marco Gandolo, a junior who's 6'0", which from rowing, for those of you who know, is quite short. I'm 6'1", so that's quite short, 190 pounds. That's our Harvard crew for this JV race. They were second at sprints, third at IRAs, another very strong Harvard crew pulling in the stake boats here.
All right, so trying to upset these guys today. There's a very international crew from Yale. There's 3 Brits, a Norwegian, a Hungarian, an American, a Polish guy, an Austrian, and a South African. So here we go. From bow, it's Martin Hajdu from Zagreb, Hungary. He's a first year. He's an undecided major at 6'1", 195. He was 12th in the Hungarian U23-4 last summer. 2-seat, Axel Vergeland, a senior in economics. And he's got an energy series certificate. He's 6'7", 215. He's from Bergen, Norway. 3-seat, Scott Moorcroft, a junior with a cognitive science major. He's 6'4", 210 pounds. 4-seat is the captain of the entire Yale heavyweight men's crew, Ben Heathcote, a senior, majoring in molecular biophysics. And I can't read it. How about that? He's from London and at King's College, Wimbledon. He was the 2026 team captain, as I mentioned, and his younger brother is attending Yale next year, although they won't overlap. 5-seat, Max Peel, a junior, an English major, 6'5", 200 pounds from London, England, and Westminster School. 6-seat is John Zitek, a sophomore in economics from Warsaw, Poland. He's 6'4", 210 pounds. 7-seat, George Beer, a senior majoring in political science, 6'6", 210 from Oxford, England, and the Abingdon School. And the stroke is Daniel Wagner from Vienna, Austria. First year, he's undecided. He's 6'3", 195 pounds. And the coxswain, the driver, Nate Lai, a junior, majoring in computer science, from St. Louis, Missouri in the USA. He's 5'9" and exactly 125 pounds. So here we are. Those are the guys. He finished 9th at the sprints and 9th at the most recent IRA.
So I think you could probably hear it in our microphones. The wind has picked up here. We're a little more exposed than we were at the start of the 2-mile race, but we're starting to see some white caps out here, just little ones. For those of you who rowed, you know this is when things can start to go a little haywire. If oars are bouncing off of the water, you're always at risk of a crab when there's chop like this. And so they're going to have to focus on not just being extremely strong and extremely focused on the race plan, but making sure the technique is there as well, because one slip up out of the hundreds of strokes, thousands of strokes that we take in this race could be catastrophic.
Accuracy is very important. It's hard to feel yourself. It's like riding a bike downhill or with a tailwind. You just can't feel it, and it takes an expert athlete to be able to handle these conditions.
Now, I think we've had a bit of a delay to the start, simply because we've had an issue with the stake boats not being totally aligned there. They bring the stake boats up and throw down anchors, and the crews back into them, and someone holds on to the crews, so the alignment is perfect, that they are starting from the exact same spot. And so the crews have been released, they're floating down the course while they get the stake boats sorted, and then the crews will once again back into the starting blocks and go from there. I should say, I was having this conversation yesterday. I grew up in a rowing household. My father rowed on Team Canada years ago, and there was a great short film that I grew up watching, 3-minute film that they'd show before movies in Canada in the 60s. It was called Half Half Three Quarters Full, and it's a very odd film. You can YouTube it, no words, just this very odd electronic 60s music.
Okay.
And it's filming the Canadian Henley, and it is a phenomenal show of the tension that happens at the beginning of these races. These young men want to explode out of the gates. The thing they want to be doing the most right now is rowing. The thing they want to be doing the least is sitting here waiting.
That's right, waiting.
And so I remember this film being shown in my household from a young age, and just understanding from the get-go the tension that was at the beginning of a rowing race, where you have, 16 people just roaring to go and being held back, and in this case slightly delayed as we get the starting boats aligned.
Well, I'm sure both coaches, having had some experience here, particularly Charlie Butt, the Harvard men's coach, something always different happens on race day, right? And this is a powerful river. There is some wind and some, the current is diminishing as we're approaching slack tide. But you have to assume that this is something they prepare for. Like, okay, the stake boats might go off. Somebody might have a floating start. Nothing's going to go exactly the way it's always planned. Something always happens, and this is what's happening now. They're waiting for the good people in the stake boats to actually set the anchors firmly so that the platform is stable and the race can be as fair as possible.
I think any good athlete is ready for that. I remember listening to Eliud Kipchoge in the Tokyo Olympics, where if people remember the marathon, the humidity was insane. Mm-hmm. And obviously he is a legendary athlete, but his response when asked about the humidity was it's humid for everyone.
Yes.
It's not just I'm not more impacted by anyone else, and they, it's impacting both crews equally here, that they both have to wait the exact same amount of time. We're not going to start the race without one of them, that's for sure.
Last year we saw an athlete get a little wobbly towards the end of the race, having rowed himself nearly all the way out, and that could have affected. Do you think something like that could happen today?
Over the 3-mile race, I would be a little bit surprised. It is still significantly longer than the 2K race, but knowing how Harvard trains and the river they're on, they will race this distance more. If that's going to happen, traditionally it's happened in the varsity race, where the 4-mile race is just so much different in length, but not different in intensity, that you see it in those 4-mile races more often. It's happened here, I believe it was 2 years ago with the Harvard 7-man. They still won the race because they built up a really significant lead, and the young man had just thrown himself, into the well, as they say.
Yep.
It happens in the Oxford-Cambridge boat race, not frequently, but more frequently than you think. It's just because these people, even international athletes, are used to racing for 5.5, 6 minutes.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they're expected to race for 18, and you just don't always judge it right. And when things start to go south, they can go south quick.
I'm thinking the combination of the heat, the travel ramifications back from the West Coast, which only happens every 4 years or so.
Yeah.
That they just flew back Sunday, probably a red eye, and then they bus right up here to Gales Ferry or Red Top. They start training. Obviously, the focus is on winning this boat race. It's just everything putting together. Then the heat, which you can't really feel because it is a little bit cooler here on the water, and you have a nice tail breeze that cools the sweat right off you. And now their heart rate, as fit as they are, they're going to be down in the 70, 80 range probably. And then they're just going to burst up to 190 within 40 seconds. So you never know. You never know what's going to happen.
I would say, I've spoken with Charlie Butt about this. I just think the quality of the athlete compared to certainly when I was around, the professionalism, I think there's way more focused on diet than certainly I ever was. Focus on diet, focus on sleep, focusing on the things outside of the training that make this happen. Again, it can happen to anyone, and it does happen, but these are professional grade athletes in their approach to what we're doing here. And so they will have known that travel was coming. They will have trained in some heat, maybe not like this, but this will not be their first rodeo. So the stake boats look to be back in position. Both boats are attached to the stake boats, and so now we await the umpire's starting orders.
You might notice, I don't know if the camera's showing it, but both the stake boats have engines on it, because as soon as these guys leave the stake boat and all the regatta follows these two crews racing upstream, those people in the stake boats will hightail it out of there, pull the anchors, and move up to the 4-mile start.
Yep.
The role of the coxswain in a situation like this, where the race is delayed by quite a significant margin, right? If your coxswain is a good talker, knows the right tone to take, whether it's more serious or keeping things lighthearted, it's a critical, often unnoticed advantage for a crew if you have a coxswain that's got their head about them and can keep the crew calm and then get ready again and race prepared right before the start.
I couldn't agree more. I think I've seen races where coxswains have won the race by being better at the starting procedure and getting their crew ready to go.
And here we are.
Yep.
Both coxswains' hands are up.
Both hands are down. And we're off. Both crews off cleanly by the looks of it.
Good leverage from the Yale crew.
Yeah.
I like their first strokes.
Getting up to speed quickly here with those short, sharp strokes.
It's a good start by Yale.
Yep, both crews are around 45. In the tailwind, you're going to be able to rate a little bit higher. But as we said, there's chop, and that always adds an element of danger. I would say Yale is up by maybe half a seat at this point. This is how it played out in the 3V, and Harvard will be hoping it's the same outcome there, of just enduring any initial push by their opponent, keeping their heads in their boat, focused on what they need to focus on, rowing their race.
Yeah. Pretty much stroke for stroke here. Harvard's starting to creep out.
Yeah.
I think it's a big win for Yale if they can just match speed here with Harvard, take it further down the track. They can't just let Harvard settle down and then start moving through.
Yeah. Harvard's rate is around a 36, a little lower than the 3V was, which makes sense. They have to row a mile longer. They need to make sure they make it to the end. I think Harvard's pulled out to maybe a seat and a half or 2 seats, depending on the angle here.
Yeah.
We're going to be coming into slightly more sheltered water here, unless something changes down the course. That was the roughest part of the water they'll be facing in this race. There will be some open water after the 2-mile mark, but then we'll get once again closer to the shore and a little bit calmer water. I think Harvard's now probably around 4 seats up, maybe moving.
It's a slow and steady move here from Harvard.
Nothing fancy, just taking a few feet at a time. This sport, we're talking about miles, but this sport is a sport of feet and inches. You never are going to move a boat length in 5 seats. You're always going to have to be patient with your efforts and have the confidence they're going to play out.
It's a big grind.
Yeah.
Harvard's grinding a little bit better here than Yale.
Harvard's rate is a little lower, they're around 34.
You can see from the drone shot, I think it looks right over the bow and stern canvas, the bow of Yale and the stern of Yale. It's a nice shot.
Now we have the Yale bow ball on the Harvard coxswain. This is also another point where the Cox make a big difference. As I was saying in the last race, that emotional barrier of open water is very real in rowing. And that Cox knows exactly where they are on the Yale boat. And they know if they can get another 3 or 4 seats, it really changes the dynamic of this race. So if I had a listening device in that coxswain's ear, in their microphone, I bet they're talking about, okay, now is the time. Put the pedal to the floor. Let's end this race now by making open water. That's what they're going to be doing. On the flip side, Yale knows that too. And the Yale coxswain is giving the instructions, and it seems to be working a little bit here. Yale, I'd say, has moved back a tiny bit in the last couple strokes.
Yep.
And the Yale coxswain will be saying, stay calm, keep in our game plan, keep in our boat, be patient. Let's do this.
Yeah, Yale just has to keep putting pressure on Harvard. Harvard wants to get out and just, I know you didn't say don't sit on it, but the longer that Yale can stay attached to their stern, you never know what's going to happen down the course as the water gets a little bit better as we come under Mammoth Hill. It's 4 minutes into it. Harvard almost has a full length on Yale. Yale's got to make a bigger push here as the water gets nicer.
The water has definitely calmed down. Both boats are still looking pretty smooth. There's no panic in either boat right now. But I think Harvard has just broken open water. I'd say it's around a 1 seat of open water. And so, again, Harvard is now going to want to very quickly make that half a length of open water. And Yale needs to be calm and not lose their heads.
In both the JV and the 3V races, Harvard's releases look a little cleaner, a little calmer, and that's because they're doing a better job from the front end. Yale's a little bit anxious out of bow, maybe moving a little too quick for the speed they're getting. Harvard is doing a nicer, more relaxed job here as they have a little bit of open water, and every man in the Harvard crew can see the Yale guys now.
Yeah. And I think if you look at the stroke of Harvard, who's had a great career there, Tyler Horler, he rows just like the stroke of the 3V as well. Really well connected in the shoulders, really long. There's no lift of the shoulders, there's no panic there. This is a man who's been racing a long time in this program and knows how to win this race now.
If you compare the 2 strokes, they're both ports. The Yale stroke is also doing a very nice job.
Yep.
It's just inch by inch, and he's inch by inch. Harvard is creeping out here, but Daniel's doing a pretty nice job for a freshman. He's doing a heck of a job.
Yeah. There is an element in these races, experience versus inexperience, and doesn't always go the way you want. I sort of think I'm an F1 fan, and I think of how sometimes these rookies don't know what they're doing, and it's actually good for them.
It is very good.
They don't know the pain and the hardship that's going to come. So it's a spotless mind to approach these races.
Ignorance is indeed sometimes bliss. Usually not, but sometimes it's fun.
And Harvard has opened up some open water, of course, but they're not moving away at quite the clip that I might have expected 2 minutes
There's
ago.
also a pretty significant wing. You might not be able to see it on the TV, but there's a wing from somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of a struggle for both crews, but Yale is in the wash now.
Yes, this is one of the facts of life of being an outdoor sport.
See the wing here? See it?
You don't get to control all the weather, and that's what's happening here.
The cameraman would fire a little bit closer to the bow of the Yale crew. Just watch that.
Stop rowing.
Now the referee has stopped the race. Unusual. I think it was that big launch there. If the cameraman can see the big white launch, let's get that guy's serial number. Well, this is going to be curious, Kip. Are they going to restart the race with this margin? You can see the Yale guys trying to sponge out the shell.
Yeah, they've taken on some water. They're going to try and get the water up on their boats. Right now, again, this is where the coxswains are key. The coaches are going to go talk to them right now.
Well, you know what I do? If I was the Yale coxswain, I have this guy start rowing up, get level with Harvard. That's what I would do.
I know, that's what you do.
The race right here. No, yeah, we were just 3 seats down. That's right.
Right. And this is where the cox just says, okay, calm, stay cool. We know what we're going to do. We're going to do another start.
It's funny now, we talked about how the crews don't have bedding shirts. The Yale guys have their bedding shirts with them, and they're using them to bail out the shell.
Yep.
You can see the captain, Ben Heathcote, at 4 seat here in the Yale crew, squeezing out the water. I mean, that's more of a symbolic thing anyway. You're not really going to sponge out 20 pounds of water. But
having almost sunk in a 4-mile race in my career, every ounce of water on that boat counts.
I'm a lightweight. You don't have to tell me that. Of course it matters.
You know, we look back and the umpire is conferring with others and other boats to figure out how he wants to play this. Now we have some more wake from the boats behind that has come forward. So we're going to have to sit here for a few minutes while we figure out
It's going to be some
what
roll
to do.
through. But I hope the cameraman caught that, because I was telling you we were in the wash, and then it got monstrous right over Martin, the bowman, Martin's head almost.
Yale crew, in my opinion, you are suffering a significant wake, slowing your cadence. I'm going to bring the race back to the red crane, the Weeks crane. My verdict is Harvard was up a length and a half. We will do a restart with Harvard up a length and a half.
So if you didn't hear it, the umpire has just come and instructed the Yale crew, but because of a wake, he viewed they were impeded, and so we're going to turn the boats around and go back to, I believe, around the 1.5 mile mark. And he has awarded Harvard a length and a half start at that point. And so they will start again from stationary, or stationary as much as they can in this water, because they won't have the stake boats. And Harvard will be up a length and a half, and they'll go from there. So that's the ruling.
I was the coaches. I'd ask to see the drone footage, do the replay, like in the NBA, have the referee go over to the bench. Length and a half, okay.
I was going to be magnanimous on that. If you're the coach, I don't know if the coaches are allowed to talk to the rowers now, but if you were able to speak to both crews, what would you tell them to be thinking about?
Just breathe.
Yep.
Relax. You know how to start. We've done this many times. Hey, that was a good warm-up. That was a good 1.5 mile warm-up. Now we're ready to have a kick-ass start.
So both crews are tapping around.
Keep it light, keep it fun. I'd have Harvard Road just nice and long, get right into the base rhythm. They have a length and a half to play with anyway. You know, make Yale do the hard work to come back level.
Yeah.
I give it about 2 minutes and then hit the gas.
Yeah, so they're going to row back approximately 300 meters, a little over 300 yards. They'll turn around. It may take a little bit of time to get alignment between those crews because we don't have those stake boats. If you can hear in the microphone, the crews are taking it somewhat lightly, I would say. There's some cheering, there's some hooting and hollering. You know, they want to keep it light.
Well, here's the thing, you know, everybody says about rowing, well, you know, there's no halftime. There's no halftime in rowing. Well, now there is.
We proved them wrong today.
Yeah, now there's a halftime. I don't know, haven't seen either coach go over and give the guys a little locker room pep talk.
No.
Throw around the trash cans and things like that.
Interestingly, Yale is rowing all 8s. Harvard is rowing by 6s, which allows 2 of the Harvard rowers to take a bit of a breather, 2 at a time. It's often how you warm up in a boat, but Harvard seems to be employing it here to give their stern pair a bit of a breather right now.
They might have been bailing out, or fake bailing out.
Yeah. You know, I think I would think Yale got by far the worst of that wake.
Oh, absolutely.
What came into their boat.
Oh yeah. I hope the camera got it. Because it was quite shocking for Martin. He got about a little Long Island Sound there inside of his shell.
All right, the boats have come back. Harvard has started to turn, I believe. They're waiting for the flotilla to make its way back here. All these boats are going to have to get behind or beside these crews before we can start again.
See, I thought it was, see that blue launch over there to the right with the triple engines on it? I thought that was the guy that threw out the wake, but apparently it was, somebody going upstream.
Yeah.
I think I saw a Washington flag actually on that launch, so.
I don't know. That seems like a Cal Berkeley move, maybe.
Good, so we made everybody on the West Coast pissed off. That's it. Great.
All right, so the boats are turning right now.
Well, he said a length and a half. Let's see what it actually is when they start. If Captain Jeff can get us there on time, we'll actually see what the referee Ed McKenna's length and a half lead actually is. So for Yale, maybe it gives them new life. Certainly it gives them a little bit of a rest, a breather. They know the level. If I was the coach, I wouldn't tell them to try to make it up all at once, though.
No.
What do they say about baseball? Every game, you always see something you've never seen before.
Yeah, this is certainly a first for me. Right, Harvard is.
And speaking of unusual things, let's take this time to remind our audience that 10 years ago today was the famous Yale win in the sinking in 2016. Remember when Yale won that race?
I think there might be a disagreement about the victor declared of that race, but
all I know is one boat crossed the finish line, and that was Yale. So
this might be somewhere where Red Top and Gales Ferry agree to disagree on this one for the rest of eternity.
But it was 10 years ago, and it was remarkably rough that day. And the Harvard sank fairly soon after the start.
Yeah. You know, for those who don't know rowing shells, these boats are long, but they do not have a lot of clearance above the water, you know, at best probably 6 inches.
Yeah.
And so you can get in situations where water creeps in, it sinks a little lower, more water creeps in, it sinks a little lower, and they don't sink to the bottom. They just sort of sit around half a foot under the surface.
Just founder.
As the rowers try to figure out what to do next.
Well, as they get lined up, I've had my clock running the whole time. It's about 15 minutes since the start of the race. And I don't know, what did they get, about 7 minutes into it? I recall is...
So the umpire who's doing the alignment is having Yale take a few strokes up. They're both pointed in the right direction. This is certainly an art, not a science.
What's going to be interesting is what the actual final finish time is. They might just have a margin.
Yeah.
It's a little more than a length and a half. Here we go.
And we're off. Clean start from Harvard, clean start from Yale.
Yep.
Both crews looking strong right out of the gates here. These direct catches from Harvard are coming back immediately. That's what you want to see. They've been sitting around for a few minutes. You know, if something was going to go wrong, this might be where it is. But both crews, thankfully, it looks like they got that cleanly back into what they're supposed to be doing, and the race is back on as we approach the mile to go mark.
No real change. Both crews off pretty well, as we saw at the beginning of the...
Harvard's back up at 38. Just decided to go real hard out of the gates. I would guess they are... I couldn't quite see the starting margin, but they're probably at a length and a half, if not more, of open water. Looking very aggressive. I think of the two crews, I would have to say, obviously being somewhat partial towards Harvard, Harvard is looking a little more aggressive here, a little more direct in their approach to what we're doing, and I think you're seeing them open up some more water here.
Yeah, as many times as the coxswain and Nate Lai can say, let's not make it up in one stroke. There's guys that are really gunning in the Yale crew. They just have to let the boat breathe a little bit more, let it run.
All right, as we go through the mile marker, a meaningless time of 17:07, but that can give you a sense of how much time we stood stopped getting the crews back to where the incident happened and where we were going to restart the race. Harvard has settled back down to around a 35 rate, still pretty strong. The water is significantly calmer than it was before. We don't see at the moment any boats that could cause a problem with wake.
Looks like Harvard's moving out a little bit now.
Yeah.
You know, this Harvard JV medalist at both the sprints and the IRA.
Yeah.
They're used to competing and making the JV boat as fast as they can. So they're not IRA or sprints champs, but they're close. They're showing their class right now.
And you can hear them in the boat. Some teams are totally quiet. They never talk. I've been in boats that can do both, where you have one or two guys who are capable of sort of saying a few words every now and then. I rode in a boat where a two-man, basically, his greatest strength was the ability to like rally the crew mid-race.
Right.
It's a very rare thing in rowing, but when it works, it really works. And I think you're hearing it now. There's some really positive noise coming from the Harvard boat as they row away. I would guess they probably have 3.5 to 4 boat lengths of open right now, and have taken a really commanding lead as they approach half a mile to go.
Well, the only thing with chatter is you got to be just as talkative when you're a length and a half down as you are when you're up.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just a front runner.
Yeah. And so for this Harvard boat, as I mentioned, there's 4 seniors who are graduating, so they're going to enter their last half mile of rowing on this course, and most likely for Harvard, it's Iris, Tyler, Apostolisis, and Cameron, who've had great Harvard careers. As I said in the 3B race, this is a bittersweet thing for them. These are likely their best friends. These are friends that they will have for life. That's the nature of these programs. And the friendship will go on, but they're never going to get to do this together again. They're never going to be this fit, I can tell you, again. And so, this is a very special moment for them, and, hoping them the best for these last few strokes. Yale is putting in an effort, though, still. I think Yale has picked up the pace. They're certainly rating a little higher than they were earlier. Still looking strong. They're not giving in yet, and I think Harvard has probably stopped moving in the last minute and a half or so.
Well, for Captain Ben Heathcote and the rest of his seniors in here, I'm sure it's a little bittersweet to end their career in this way. This is Harvard also won this race last year, so they're the holder of the F. Valentine Chapel Trophy.
Harvard's still rating around 33, 34. They probably have another 25 strokes to go before the rock. That is the traditional spot where you're almost always sprinting by the rock. They don't need to sprint here, but as I said in the earlier race, they might do it anyway. As we wait a few more strokes to figure that out. Yale has certainly picked up the pace, have not given in the slightest. They are trying their darndest to make a move because they know that other things can happen. Into the last strokes of this race, things can break, things can fall apart. There's not water that's going to cause any problems from here on out, but you never know until the last stroke is taken who's going to win. And so Yale is doing its best to keep as close to Harvard as they can. Harvard, though, looks very strong, very confident, rowing that super long stroke that Charlie Butt teaches them, just very connected through the shoulders and through the end of the drive. It's a beautiful way of rowing as they go in front of the rock.
Well, you talked a lot about the seniors, how this is their last go-around, but there's a lot of guys coming back in both these crews. And for the younger guys, the first years, well, there's a little bit of a mistake from Harvard, but you can see there is a little bit of chop here.
Yeah, right in the last 20 strokes there's been chop, and they had a little bit of a hiccup there.
It's not enough to look at. Harvard's having some problems there, as is Yale.
Yeah. And I don't think that's boat wake. I just think that's chop from the wind.
A bit wakey.
Yeah.
And Harvard now obviously just smoothly across the line. It's going to narrow the margin a little bit. In one of the more bizarre races that we've seen with the wake out restart.
All right. As you're saying, there's some fresh in that race. That was certainly, I think, the oddest race that they will ever confront in their careers here, but never say never. I'm, impressed with both crews for how they handled that after rowing away.
I thought that was good spirit, and nobody was whining about it. They just did it.
Yeah.
Turned around and got it done.
Yep. So again, they will pull the boats together while we await to at least figure out how we're going to announce the results. These officially, we suspect we might get a margin more than a time.
Right. It'll be interesting to see when both these crews dump out their shells, how much water was actually in there. But that's certainly something to discuss as they do the shirt I won't say exchange because it's not back and forth, but the shirt
Gentlemen, there will be
awarding.
no time taken due to the restart.
There is going to be officially no time taken due to the restart in the record books. Harvard will be named the victor, but there will be no official time listed because of the incident that occurred midway through the race. So that's 3 of the 4 races that we're going to see at this regatta. The combination boat last night, the 3V and the 2V. Harvard has been victorious in all 3. You know, the goal of this regatta is always a sweep. Another great thing about these programs is the varsity is the varsity, but these are big programs where every boat matters, and they really care about a sweep, right? They obviously care about winning the varsity, but I remember when I was rowing, we would come out the night before and we're quite nervous because we wanted that combi boat to start off the weekend right for us because we were intent on getting that sweep because it reflects on the entire program. And I know the same thing happens at Yale. It is not just about the V, it's about the whole program excelling and pushing each other to be better.
Well, you also know, however, on the flip side of that, okay, it hasn't worked out well for Yale so far in the first 3 races, but should they be victorious in the 4-miler, that lends a different spirit to both the camps at Red Top and at Gales Ferry, does it not?
I luckily never had to experience that, but I suspect you are correct.
We'll talk about that when we come back. Hopefully we get a little more time before the 3 o'clock start time. We got to head 4 miles downriver here. But we're going to talk about the last time a Harvard crew won the sprints but was defeated by Yale in the 4-miler. But when we come back, that's a teaser. Hopefully we'll be back before 3 o'clock in time to not just read the lineups, but to talk a little bit about that superb year. I'll leave it up to the internet sleuths to find out what I'm talking about in the 40 minutes we have before the next race, or 30 minutes. But here, from the finish line of the Yale Harvard Regatta here in New London, it was Harvard victorious in the JV race, and they are awarded for the 2nd year in a row the F. Valentine Chapel Trophy. Back to you.
Clear.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Thames River in New London, Connecticut. I'm Andy Card, that's Kip McDaniel, and we're here under the Gold Star Memorial Bridge, 4 miles away from the finish line of the Yale-Harvard Regatta. My job here is to tell you a little bit about this young Yale crew and then give Yale fans a little bit of a hope for this race and its positive outcome for Yale. So this Yale JV is a very young JV, Yale varsity. It doesn't have any seniors in it. It's got 3 freshmen, 3 sophomores, and 3 juniors. It's an international crew, as most of them are these days, with 5 Brits, 2 Americans, 2 Norwegians. It only has 2 returners from last year's varsity. And last year's Great Britain 8, the U-23 8 that won the gold medal, had 2 Yale oarsmen in it and 3 Harvard oarsmen in it, 2 of whom have graduated. But so these guys are good friends with the Harvard 8, and they'd like nothing better to beat them. So how do you do it? Well, Harvard, as we know, won the sprints this year. Yale finished 7th. I looked back through Google search to find out the last Harvard sprints champion that lost to Yale in the 4-miler, and we had to go all the way back to 1957. Now, if you recall, in 1956 at the Melbourne Olympics, the Yale 8 won the gold medal there in Australia. Now, the Olympics were held in the summer, of course, and summer in Australia is in November, December, January. So the Olympics in 56 were held in November 22nd to December 8th. And then that spring, 4 guys from that gold medal winning 8 for Yale returned. They didn't have such a good sprints, Harvard did. But then at the boat race here in New London, starting under this very bridge, the same bridge, Harvard got out to a lead, small lead. They rowed the first mile in 5:15, and then Yale, rowing at a steady and very tough rate of 30 strokes a minute, steadily moved through Harvard to win by about 30 seconds, which is a pretty smashing win. It probably took the Yale guys a little time to find their footing on their way back from Australia and all the celebration that comes with an Olympic gold medal. The funny thing is about this research, quote unquote, was this sentence: once the Bulldogs overtook the Crimson, Harvard's margin rapidly dwindled. Think about that. All you AI tech bros, get to work on your algorithms there.
Well, it gives me, as a Harvard partisan, it gives me hope that the precedent you had to reach for was from the Eisenhower era. But as we always say, anything can happen in rowing, and we saw it in that last race. I don't think I've ever seen a race stopped in that manner, certainly not here. We were saying I think it's a right call. I don't think it changed the outcome of the race, but I think that was perhaps the fairest way to approach it, so I applaud the umpires for that in that 3B race.
I agree. Good stoppage and a good result for Harvard. So let's go down this Yale crew that's trying to do something that hasn't been done since 1957. The bowman is Bailey Foster, a first year studying in global affairs. He's from Ross, California, and he's 6'4", 190 pounds. The 2 seat, a sophomore, Felix Peerless, majoring in political science and history. He's from London in the UK, and he's a Pauline. He went to St. Paul's School. 3 seat, Christian Reese, a first year physics major, 6'7", 207 pounds, also a Pauline from St. Paul's School and London, England. He was the Yale stroke for the first 7 races this spring as well. 4 seat, John Patton, a returning junior. He's majoring in mechanical engineering. He's 6'5", 215 pounds, from Boston, Mass. and Deerfield Academy. The 5 seat, Ulrich Lode, a junior physics major, 6'4", 215 pounds, from Lier, Norway. The 6 seed, a sophomore, Ben Mead, studying mechanical engineering, 6'5", 200 pounds, from Cambridge in the UK, and he went to the Perth School. 7 seed, Angus Garay Cheap, a sophomore, economics, politics, and ethics major, 6'4", 205 pounds, from Oxford in the UK. He went to Radley College. And the stroke, Einar Bjorvik, a junior, majoring in economics, from Bergen, Norway. He's 6'4", 195 pounds. And the leader, the coxswain, Ed Crosthwaite Iyer, a freshman from, it looks like Bremshaw in the UK, Eton College. He's majoring in German studies. He's 5'9" and exactly 125 pounds. He got a gold in the Great Britain U-19-8 in 2024. So that's your Eli crew. Mike Gennaro loves these guys, thinks they're very level-headed, and matter of fact, they did a good job at the sprints in reacting from their heat to and they had a good final. So that's the Yale guys. Let's turn it over to Kip for an introduction to the Harvard crew.
Yeah, the Harvard crew you just saw do a final start before they pull into the gates. That could be a little bit of brinksmanship, which I spoke about last time. If you have a good start and the other crew is sitting there, it never hurts to go and show it off one final time before you get into the starting blocks. So as Andy said, this is a good Harvard crew. They won the Eastern Sprints. They actually set the course record for the Charles River, which has been rowed on for many years, rowed a 5:28 2K in their race against Northeastern. They had a somewhat disappointing for them IRAs. It came fourth in a very tight race, but as I said earlier, this is a game of feet and inches over many kilometers, so that happens. And so our crew today is loaded up with seniors, has 4 returning folks, and 1 freshman actually. So our coxswain is Natalia Toms, who's a sophomore and 5'2" from Shrewsbury, England, from Shrewsbury School. Our stroke and captain is Ben Scott. He's a senior, 6'4" and 196 pounds from Perth, Australia. He's actually a walk-on, and he also just won the Hoops Prize for his economic thesis at Harvard, which is one of the most prestigious academic prizes an undergrad can win. So he's not just a great rower and a great leader here on the crew team, but a great student as well. At 7, also returning for the first boat is Jack Doherty, who's a senior, 6'6", from Monkstown, Ireland. Coming all the way from the 3V this year is Jordan Dykema, who's a senior, 6'1", 190 from Seattle, Washington. The first of our 2 rowers from Washington State, which is a bit of a mecca of rowing in America. Our 5 seat up from the JV last year is Sam Woodgate. He's a sophomore, 6'2", 170 pounds from Christchurch, New Zealand. If that number is true, he's certainly the lightest heavyweight rower in these races today. At 4, returning again to the V is Alex Grundy, who's a senior, 6'6", 270 pounds from Henley-on-Thames, perhaps the most famous rowing town in the world in England. He's also a grad of Eton College. At 3, up from the JV last year is Leo Besler, who's also a senior, 6'6" and 215. He's our second rower from Washington State, from Tacoma. At 2, our first freshman at 6'3", 200 pounds from Perth, Australia, Jack Hansen Carnoy. And then at bow, who's returning to the varsity once again, is Josh Brangan, who's a senior, 6'1", 192 from St. Edward's School, England. So that's our Harvard crew today. They've had a very successful year. They'll be training for this all year round. At Harvard and at Yale, they do train for 2Ks, but always in the back of their mind is this 4-mile behemoth waiting them on the last day of the year. And it's something you have to train for. If you just train for a 2K and try to do this, you would fail. And so the coaches know that, the rowers know that, and so it's something truly unique about the training programs of these 2 crews versus everyone else in the country, that they know their seasons ends with this race. You know, the oldest intercollegiate athletic event in America predates the Civil War, that this started on Lake Winnipesaukee in my adopted home state of New Hampshire, moved to New London in the 1870s. They've been doing this ever since then with very few breaks. And so they are part of a long tradition of young men and some women in the coxswain seat who have sat under this bridge ready to go down all 4 miles of the Thames River, not the Thames.
Thames, that's right. It's not necessarily the last go-around for both of these crews. I do know that Yale and Harvard are planning to go to Henley-on-Thames in England and race in that regatta, but it's never the same. And I'm sure today, on this day, is the most important day in the calendar. For the winning crew, it's going to be a joyful experience, and for the losing crew, it's going to be complete and utter darkness for a while. And then they'll both meet again over in England. I know Mike Gennaro's hopeful for this Yale crew. There's no change in there since the IRA. I mean, it's only been a week.
Yep.
And they're hoping to do something good today. I think something has to happen. You know, it looks pretty calm here under the Gold Star Bridge. As they emerge, it's going to get a little choppier, and then as we saw in the last 2 races around Mammoco Kill, the water conditions do get nicer.
Yeah, so both crews are in the stake boats. You can see them taking the last sips of water bottles, emptying them out. They don't want to carry any extra weight. Coxswain's hands are up in the harbor boat, indicating they are not yet ready. They do not have a course yet. That is how the coxswains communicate to the umpires that they're ready or not. When both hands are down, the boats are lined, the umpires are ready, that is when the race will get underway. So we have a minute or 2 left here as the crews just finalize their preparations.
If you can look at Coxswain Ed of the Yale crew, he's pretty relaxed there. He's sitting up on the deck, trying to get a view down the course. There he is. Now he sits down in the seat, gets wedged in. getting his posture, getting his point. It's a really nice tail breeze here.
It is. It's probably calmed down since the third varsity race. We noticed that on the way up here. Hopefully that remains. Harvard's hand is still up.
So the previous 2 races, we've seen Yale get out to some very nice strokes early, nice leverage. They've all had a 2 or 3 seat lead on Harvard before Harvard's pace rhythm comes through. We'll see if that same pattern plays out, or if Yale can actually make that beginning lead stick.
Both Coxons.
That hasn't happened yet, of course. They have to get a lead first to be able to hold it.
Both hands are down.
Yale, attention, go.
And they're off. Both are off cleanly. Harvard perhaps rating slightly higher. But I would say again, Yale has maybe had 1 seat off that start. But I think even quickly now it's come back even.
Yeah.
Harvard's moving very nicely in their rhythm. Harvard's probably got 2 seats. Rating in the mid-40s, as you'd expect at this point, even though it's a 4-mile race, nearly 3 times longer than a usual race for them. They are going out of the gates just as hard. And Harvard, unlike the other 2 races, probably took the lead from the first 3 or 4 strokes. I would say they have around 4 seats right now, and they look very strong.
Yeah, they're finishing the strokes nicely, shoving the boat.
Harvard's still rating above 40. They probably have 8 seats. This is an exceptionally strong start for Harvard.
Yeah.
I think now is when Yale just needs to make sure they don't panic, as always. Panic is the enemy of good rowing. And Harvard just needs to keep doing what they're doing, which is putting the pedal to the floor right now. We are almost at stern to bow. As I mentioned in the earlier races, the Harvard coxswain will be telling their crew, right now, let's break that string between our boats. It is just a mental string, but it is probably the most decisive thing in a rowing race when that happens.
Well, this is pretty bold by Harvard.
Yeah.
It's a hot day. It's a long race. It gets even hotter because you don't have the wind to cool you off.
Yeah.
It's sort of neutral. So this is curious. They've stopped moving.
Harvard settled down to around a 37 at a rate. Yale is probably a little lower, more like 35.5 is what I'm getting from Yale. But I would say the decisive move that Harvard had earlier might have slowed, perhaps not stopped, but the acceleration away has slowed slightly.
Well, if they can get far enough ahead, they can just take a little more time, get a little more relaxed, just keep tapping that thing along. There's going to be hard to beat for Yale.
2:18 versus 2:22 going through the half-mile mark is what I got informally.
That was an impressive start by Harvard.
Yeah, and they seem to they're continuing that impressive rowing. I'm just looking certainly at the stern for how well connected they are to the water. Not saying the bow four aren't. I just haven't looked at them yet. It's just a very direct way of rowing, and I've been really impressed with the rowing from the Harvard crews all day long. It's a very similar style. They've all bought into this style of rowing. You can clearly tell. And today, thus far, it's working. You know, we've spoken before, Andy. It may look like Harvard's got this in the bag, but things happen, especially in this race, whether it's in Harvard-Yale or in the other famous 4-miler, Oxford-Cambridge.
Right.
It happened 2 years ago when we were watching. I've seen it on many a time on TV watching the Oxford-Cambridge race. It's such an unusual distance, and then you add in other factors like it is very warm out here and the sun has come back out. There's no cloud cover on these boats right now. Things can happen, and so that, you know, the coxswain needs to make sure people are keeping their minds about them, keeping it in their heads that this is a 20 or 18-minute race. It is not 5:28, which they were rowing a few weeks ago on the Charles.
Well, it's Yale's job to put pressure on the leader, which is Harvard, to make, if there's any flaw in the movement or the physiology or what have you, or the body water composition, they have to put pressure on them. And right now, that's not happening. Harvard's able to relax and swing even longer. And sometimes when you try less hard and you swing more and you just relax, you go even faster.
Yeah, and by my count, Harvard's outrating Yale by at least a stroke a minute, if not a stroke and a half or two.
I'm not sure they need to do that. I'm not sure in a longer race I wouldn't take it down half a beat, get a little more run, sort of relax.
The only counter to that is, he certainly, you know, in my time rowing these 4-mile races, if you have a set rate you want to go to, and your crews are rowing at that rate for just training a long time, 35 can feel better than 33.
Yeah.
35 can feel punchy, powerful. 33 can start to feel sluggish. So we've just gone through the mile there, probably a length and a half of open water between the two of them. Harvard continues to pull away slightly. Yeah, we definitely have calmer water here than we had for the the 3B race. The 3B got the worst of it, certainly.
Get some rollers from who knows where, from Providence. But here are those factors. So Harvard has a commanding lead at this point. They can see Yale in its entirety. You know, if somebody gets a little inattentive, these are pretty big rollers that Captain Jeff is having to steer us through. It's eventually going to hit the crews. Just have to be organized. The coxes have to warn them that's coming on.
Yeah, you can see.
There you go. Now you're seeing it hit Harvard a little bit.
Hitting some wake now. The cox will be telling them just to think about clean blade work, tapping down at the finish, making sure it's a clean exit from the water. That's the danger point in any rowing stroke. If that oar gets stuck in the water, it can have disastrous effects. So the cox will know. She will see that the rollers are coming and will adjust accordingly. I would say that Yale has sort of stopped Harvard's move away. The distance between them has remained somewhat stable for the last minute and a half. That happens in races. People make pushes, pre-planned or otherwise. But I think that's a fair call. The movement between the two boats has stopped.
Now it's a little game of cat and mouse. You know, Harvard can sit there, just watch, see if there's any attacks.
We spoke a little bit earlier about, you know, the benefits and drawbacks of knowledge of this race and sort of blissful ignorance of this race. I think what you're seeing here is a very mature Harvard crew. You know, we've all been watching them as alumni for the last 3 or 4 years and know that they're a very strong group. And I think that this is what's happening here. With this race and with any rowing race, really, streaks happen. Obviously, until 2 years ago, Yale had a masterful streak of almost a decade of racing wins. Before that, we had, you know, with some breaks, a couple decades of Harvard dominance under Harry Parker. And I think this crew, if they can pull this out and finish ahead, third win in a row, you're starting to see that streak. But, you know, you have so many freshmen in the Yale boat.
Right.
Is that, as a coach, that still must be something that tonight, afterwards, you can be encouraging about, that this is the start of a journey, not just the end of a season.
Absolutely. There's a lot of young guys getting a lot of experience. You know, I think it was a very challenging turnaround from the IRA. Obviously, Harvard a little disappointed not to get a medal, just out of it. Yale very disappointed, of course, in how that 2,000-meter racing season turned out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one thing to come back as a sprints champ and row this race with some confidence. Nobody in the East was better than you at Worcester on that day, including this Yale crew. So it's just still a different attitude, but there's no way the Yale guys should be discouraged. Coming up on 8 minutes now.
Yeah, and as opposed to 2 minutes ago, I think Harvard has sort of started opening it up again. They're coming up to the 2 mile mark. I would say Harvard looks just as strong as they have the entire race. Yale still looks strong, but just a little less punchy, I would say, than the Harvard crew.
Yeah, a little slower to leave it along for sure. Harvard's doing a good job getting on it. There's a lot of chirping too. I don't know if you can hear it over the camera. You can still hear some chirping from the Harvard crew. They're fully engaged in the project, not going through the motions.
Yeah.
There's Mamako Kill. It's about coming up on just short of 9 minutes.
You know, we say we're 2 miles into this race, but also, when you're running a marathon, they say halfway at the 26.2 miles is 20 miles. That's kind of what's happening here. This is the easiest 2 miles of the race by far they just rode. any rower knows that, you know, everything is screaming in their bodies, and they know they're halfway done, but they still have approximately, you know, 9 or 10 minutes of this, which is considerably longer than their usual race. And so it is not over. They're constantly checking their bodies, thinking, okay, where am I at with my effort level? Can I push a little harder? Do I need to pull back a slight bit to avoid something going wrong? That's a constant process for every one of these rowers.
The pacing is different than a 2K for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, but Harvard, I think the last 500 meters has really put their stamp on this race and really started to show just what quality a crew they are. The blade work is very nice. We obviously have some calm water here, which shows it off, but we're looking at the starboard blade work, and it's just pristine at this point. This far into the race, that's an achievement unto itself, certainly.
I mean, if they keep pushing, I think they're thinking they might be able to set a record. I'm not sure that's going to happen.
I mean, you can always hope. I'm not sure the tailwind is quite there for record times, but they're certainly putting in the effort as if they think that's possible. Yeah, you can hear the Harvard boys talking to each other. They're not chirping at Yale. They're talking to each other, encouraging each other. They know what they're doing. They know if they can keep this up, what it means. It's approaching the 1.5 miles to go markers. I would say Harvard threw it around 11:15. Probably Yale going through it around 11:27. So we're looking around a 12-second margin. Harvard's still rowing at around a 34 base pace right now, looking very strong and smooth.
This is about where that JV race was stopped.
Yeah.
The difference in the water quality here is impressive.
Yes.
This is what you would imagine it would be when you're running the race in your head as you're dreaming about it throughout the year. This is some nice water here, good conditions. So now, as you look at what the camera shows you, the steering buoys at the next mile mark, it's interesting. The west lane is now very narrow. The east lane is wide apart, whereas earlier in the day it was the opposite.
Yeah.
It's very narrow on the east lane. So that just shows you how the current changes when the tide moves around. The tide goes slack. It's a tricky river. It is a straight course. In other words, the teams both go the same distance. But things can move around. Your coxswain has to be constantly aware of the movement underneath him or her.
Yeah.
Our guys are still talking to each other.
Yeah, they look very rhythmic.
Keeping it lively. Yep.
Yeah.
You don't want anybody to get in a zone and kind of space out a little bit.
Yeah.
That's when you start to, the view starts to close in a little bit. Even though you're ahead and you feel the impending victory, you don't want things to go dark. All of a sudden your head's in the water.
So we've got a substantial margin here. We'll give you some approximate times through the 1 mile to go barrier. Harvard is just about to poke through that marker. 3 miles down, 1 to go. Probably a 13:40 unofficially for them. They've gone through that pretty narrow gap perfectly.
18:17's the record.
Yeah. Yale will be going through at approximately 13:55.
You know, there were some boat races, Kip, when Dave Ogle was coaching, that both teams would set the upstream or the downstream record.
Yep.
Those were some amazing races to see, with both crews were high quality, and both of them would smash the previous record. Harvard might have a chance at it. I'm not sure. Yale would today?
No. You said it's 1855?
1817.
1817.
It was set by Yale in 2022. Very fast year.
Yeah.
That was upstream.
You know, at this point, both crews are really just rowing their own race. As always in rowing, when you're up, you have the massive advantage of seeing what's going on behind you. Harvard can see that they have a margin that I would describe certainly as comfortable, and that will give them strength because they know they've rowed this course enough to know exactly where they are. They know they're about to feel the shoreline on their west side. That means they're getting close to the half-a-mile to go marker. Next up will be a little bay, and then the big red rock with the Harvard colors on it. And then they know from there on out it's just about closing it down 20, 25 strokes to finish their Harvard rowing careers for some of them, certainly on this body of water for at least 4 of the athletes, including the captain, Ben, and Strokesy, who I know is very well respected by the crew. They all speak extremely highly of him as he's a walk-on, he's a great leader, he's a great academic leader. He's sort of hitting all the buckets that you want in a crew captain at Harvard, and I know that he's been a very impressive young man leading this program. So Harvard's through in around 15:53.
Kip, when you would come here, how long would you spend up here? 2 weeks training?
Usually 2 weeks.
Yeah, this has been a very short campaign for both these. I mean, they just got here on Monday morning.
16:09 for Yale. It has. I think the calendar was a little more appropriate for us. I know Harry Parker, who's my coach, this is a very, very dear place for Harry, and by extension for all of us who rowed for him. And so Red Top is something that we love spending 2 weeks a year, rowing, playing croquet, eating together. We also do skits. We always joke that the worse rower you were, the better you were in skits because you were smarter.
Well, my point there is that, you said they had to practice. Both these crews practiced their 4-miler. I know that for sure at Yale during the school year. But they haven't actually been on this course all that much.
Yeah.
You can't come back from the IRA and fly across the country and then rip out a couple of trials.
No.
Now,
to their credit, I think Yale has picked up the pace, and Harvard isn't moving more than they were a couple minutes ago. Obviously, they have a substantial lead, but Yale has not yet thrown in the towel. You can tell they're giving a real full effort here as they come into the rock area.
so they have a minute to tie the record, a minute to get to the finish line. What do you think?
I think that's going to be
close.
a heavy lift.
Let's see.
Yale has brought up the rate to 36, which is a Herculean effort after rowing so long in this water. Harvard stroking at around a 35.
30 seconds to the record.
A bit lower. If 30 seconds to the record, maybe I misspoke. They're approaching the rock, which means they are getting very close.
17 seconds. This is all unofficial.
18 minutes have just passed as Yale approaches the rock for the last time of the day.
It's going to be close, but just short. It's impressive.
Yeah.
It's a very fast time from Yale. This will be the second fastest time possibly on record. Let's look for the flag. 1832. Unofficial.
Last 5 strokes for Yale. And they're through the line.
1847 unofficial.
Right, well rowed to both crews, but an extra special congratulations to Harvard on an extremely impressive performance versus the competitor and versus the historical clock of this course. I think the 4 seniors graduating this program will be very proud of that final race on home waters. And for the one freshman in the boat, it's a great way to start his Harvard-Yale rowing career, and hopefully there'll be more following in his footsteps soon.
So unofficially, we have a gap of 15.6 seconds between the crew of Harvard and the crew of Yale. Looking up the unofficially, Harvard crossed the line in 18:32.23 and Yale in 18:47.86. Those are some of the fastest times ever recorded upstream. I think before that, the fastest Harvard had gone was 18:44. So very impressive. Especially since the crews weren't level. Harvard wasn't necessarily pushed with the Yale crew being right next to them the whole time. So that's an impressive season for Harvard.
Yeah, so the official times for Harvard, 18:32.4, and for Yale, 18:47.9. This caps off a great season for Harvard, caps off a great day, a sweep, which is always the goal here at Red Top. But I think these crews, this crew and all the other crews, can be proud of the season they had. And then onwards to next year, as they say.
As they say. Well, both these crews are going on to England. I don't know when they're flying out. They'll probably take some time to have a break and then be back at it on the shores or the banks of Henley. And we don't know the exact composition of those crews, but best of luck to both schools. Maybe they'll meet again in 4s, Cox 4s, straight 4s, 8s. The ladies played in the Grand. I'm not sure who's entering what, but certainly they're good representatives of, I want to say American rowing, but there's a lot of internationals in there, as we saw.
There's a lot more internationals than Americans these days.
So maybe we'll just say collegiate age rowing.
Yeah. So now the crews will pull the boats together. I know after that, the Harvard crew will go back. There will be a communal swim in the water as a team to celebrate the sweep. They'll then go up, and then tonight they will elect their new team captain, I think before their final banquet of the season at Red Top. So I hope the boys enjoy it. It's been a wonderful day, and it's been wonderful being here with you, Andy.
Kip, I've enjoyed it as always. It's been warm, unlike last year when it was pouring rain. I'm glad that we can spend this time together watching some rowing and the oldest intercollegiate sport and event in the country. So congratulations again to Harvard for retaining the Sexton Cup for 2026. I'll send it away to you. We'll see you next year.
Awesome. Good to see you.
All right, we're clear.